All right, delivery midstream. So we had to pause for a second, but I'm back. Where were we? Anyways, we were talking about the decision between whether or not we're going to carry any local storage with us or not, and the answer is no. So, and we already went through why. So I'm going to pick this option here: is implement import UI in handler and skip local storage entirely. So this one. Okay, let's just see what it goes with. Maybe I'll try to go ahead and implement. But the idea is that at the end of this, we should have a way to crack open an incognito window and see if it will successfully upload our data or not. So while it's thinking, and I suspect we're already most of the way through with the implementation here under the hood. So I think some of the biggest work for the bot here is just going to be like, wiring things up and putting the UI in. Cool. So while we're waiting on that, I started thinking about some other stuff that I might want to play around with. And for example, like, I think about a good way to demonstrate this here because we don't have all. I want to see if I can get another couple of kanji. We're going to speed master a few things here. Because right now, again, if you kind of go back to some of the other streams, we talked about like this game in and of itself is not all we are doing to help my 9-year-old learn kanji. We've got a little workbook we're doing with Sumiko Gurashi characters and stickers. And she's doing Duolingo as well. So this is just kind of almost really intense in a way, just entirely focused on kanji because like there's just so many to learn and you kind of want that repetition of seeing them often. And I'll tell you just anecdotally, like it's been wildly effective. Like in the last, let's call it at this point, maybe 9 or 10 days of her playing this game, like the difference between us walking outside here in Kyoto and like her being able to read even a few signs here and there or have questions about things that before maybe were just like kind of not on her radar is just night and day different. So that's been super useful. And at the same time, if you've ever gone through the process of learning kanji, you'll know that, again, like this presentation is extremely basic, right? Like, so this kanji just is a good example. This is tsuki, which means moon, but it can also be read getsu, like mangetsu means full moon. But this is also used for month, right? So you might have like ichigatsu, right? January, nigatsu, February. So there are multiple readings of this kanji. There are more variations. Not all of them have that many, but certainly some of the basic ones do. I mean, this is another great example, one that was quite challenging for my daughter, because it means life or live or to be born. It can also mean draft beer. It has a lot of different meanings. And so, when I take this kind of basic, the word sound is e, that's not even enough information really, because you would never just say e. It's part of a verb that you would spell out ikiru, which means to live. But there's another verb called umareru that means to be born, and so on. So anyways, all of this to say that this presentation is meant to be pretty terse and kind of intense in its own way. But there might be a world where it would be quite nice to be able to put a few example words on the page, right? So this is another, we're getting a lot of luck of the draw here on this because like this is another great example. This by itself with the hiragana ru attached to it is hairu, which means to enter. But you would also see it as like a new koku, which means to enter the country. Or there's even another one that we keep coming across, which is not covered by either of these readings, that is iriguchi, which means entrance, and you see that everywhere. So there might be something nice if we could show like some example words. So that's not something we'll build today, but like just kind of thinking about like obvious future features if we do keep embellishing on this app. That's something I want to think through. And especially if you're a learner or a speaker of Japanese, you might be looking at this and thinking, how useful could this possibly be? Again, on its own, not very. As part of a broader diet of different ways of learning the language, I think it actually, I mean, so far it seemed quite effective in real life, based on just an audience of one. So anyways, we might actually look at that at some point. I'm not sure how much more live stream time we'll dedicate to this game specifically, because again, she's got so many other things that she's doing. We don't have to like dial this in until it becomes Duolingo or whatever. So we'll see how that goes. In the meantime, though, the bot has worked on the feature, and let's see what it has to say for itself. It says that it added an import button, which I just saw down here. So there's import. And it will call import user data, and then it'll refresh the in-memory progress, which I read that to mean that it will overwrite, it'll probably refresh what's in local storage, or is it actually mean memory? We should ask. But it won't override local storage. Yeah. So in other words, okay, I think I understand, but I wanna ask just to make sure that we're on the same page. So what changed? It added the UI. It added the on import and is importing wiring and states. That'll be interesting to see how nicely those are done. We leave local storage untouched, which is what we wanted, and only index DB data is merged. Okay, so that's another question. Did we have in this repo? Let's see. I thought we might have like okay. So a lot of times what I'll do, and I think I'll start doing consistently for stream purposes, is I like to have just like a scratch pad file so we can jot things down. Just because like these, I mean, development in general, you're thinking about 10 things at once anyways, but then when you throw a bot in the mix, like they'll suddenly throw things where you're like, that's not kind of the point of what we're doing right now, but now I have questions. And so this one here too, I have questions about what we mean by merge, because there's a world where we might say if we're uploading, we should overwrite just to keep things simple, but I want to come back to those later if necessary. Okay, so this will alert us if there's a success or failure using the window alert. That's probably, okay, I'm gonna grab this too, because that's like probably something we want to make better. Using the standard alert is usually not what you want. Okay, so let's try this and see. It's funny, I don't know why I'm nervous about this, because we're gonna use an incognito window, but let's do export data. And then let's open, okay, off to the side here, I'm gonna open a new incognito window. Localhost 3000. Great, so let's just verify where we are in the first place. If we view all, we'll see that right now, so by default, when you start the game, you get 15 kanji that you're learning. There's a constant in the app somewhere that I set, whereas like we just don't want 15 new ones in the mix, or that have like the in learning status at any given time. That's arbitrary, to a certain extent. I mean, I kind of talked it out with ChatGPT a little bit about like best practices around like Anki, and for a given age and the subject matter. That doesn't mean this is by any means like bulletproof, but again, been effective. So this is the default. And then we're gonna click import data, and Give me just a second here. I want to see what that does. Yeah. So just off to the side here for a second, looking for the data. Okay, cool. Okay, so import data. And then over here, I'm just saving everything to downloads because it's being downloaded from the browser. This is the latest one. I'm curious if it will handle the naming convention well, if that chokes it at all. So far it seems fine. It added a bunch of these. Let's see if that does anything. Okay. So I'm gonna refresh. So on one hand, it seems like we are doing well with like the overall status. On the other, it looks like the actual individual statuses are obviously wrong. So that's fine. This is something that we can work with this. Let's go into just making sure that our counts are correct for mastery, and they appear to be. That's good. And then this is where I think probably that word merge that I wrote down is gonna shoot us in the foot, and that's okay. I don't want to merge. I want to overwrite. And so I think that's what we will ask our friend Codex to do for us. Let's see here. What's a good way to phrase this? I noticed that you said that we are merging indexed DB data. I'm not sure that merge is the right move for this, given that it just probably introduces more complications than is necessary. When I uploaded the file, the upload went nicely. However, it seems to have on kind of mixed results. The progress chart shows exactly the progress that we had in our original game from our download. However, the your kanji section is kind of a mixed bag where the statuses, the individual statuses like mastered, need practice, learning now, and resting, those counts are all incorrect. So I'm not sure if this is a merge issue or if there's something else, but if it's simply a matter of merging causing a problem, let's consider this to be a complete overwrite of everything that's in indexed DB. While we're doing that, I'm gonna toss this into here so we can just take a look and see what's in here. So this is what we just uploaded into the incognito window. And I find it extremely interesting that on one hand it shows that we have 13 here mastered, and on one hand it only shows that we have 1 mastered down here. So these numbers are out of sync, which I should probably mention to the bot as well. As a matter of fact, I'm never quite sure about like what the interruption does, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it. Just to give you another data point to consider, in the below JSON file, this is the file that we uploaded into an incognito window. The your progress chart shows that we've mastered 13 kanji. However, the your kanji list only shows that we've mastered 1. So there's something there where your progress is tracking it correctly. That's what we expected to see. But the your kanji list is kind of out of sync with what we would expect. And then So this one, it might end up chewing on this one for a little while. And while it does, just coming back to that thought, there's kind of a sidebar thought for the future. Again, like adding new things to these progress, or sorry, not the progress cards, but the game itself. And I guess in here too would be nice. So again, like we'd have to come to a point where enough is enough in the game, but a few examples might be useful. For example, like just here's another easy one, but this kanji means nichi, which is sun. This kanji means book, but it can also mean origin. Um, these can all be pronounced a bunch of different ways. Again, some of the basic ones especially are completely. It's funny. There's almost like this inverse relation in in kanji where like the most basic ones might have like a ton of readings and a lot of if else buts kind of thing about like how they are read. At the same time, the more complex looking ones sometimes like may have only one or two readings. At least it's kind of interesting how that works. But just to give you a quick example here. So again, this is Nichi for sun, and then this one is book or origin. And if you put these together in this order, you get Nihon. Nihon is how you read that. So it's not Nichi, it's Ni. If you reverse them, I remember making this mistake, 20 years ago when I was learning. You'll go to a restaurant a lot of times and you'll see this one, which is like hon and then nichi in that order. And you think, oh, hon nichi, which means like today. But that's not how you read it. It's honjitsu. Honjitsu. So this can sometimes be read jitsu as well. Um, Anyways, I think kind of getting a few of those combinations into the card might be nice, just for a little more context when the person's playing the game. Just makes it a little bit easier to remember what this kanji means and in what context you're probably going to be seeing it in, given that most of the time you never see any of these just on their lonesome somewhere. Cool. So looks like we're just in time to see if this is made some progress. Switched the import flow to a full overwrite. So cool. Glad that it seems we agreed, well, or it decided to do what I asked it to. Um, it'll clear IndexedDB before inserting in the imported rows. Okay. So to verify, import the same JSON again in incognito. Confirm the chart and status counts line up. Okay. So, where's my cursor? What we will do is bring the same incognito window back, and I'm gonna do a hard refresh on it, and then import that same JSON. Look at that. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna get similar size windows here just to see if this is even matching our recent history, which it appears to be doing. So if you're yelling at the screen about one inconsistency, I see it too, but I want to start with like what we're getting correct first. Sorry, I'm gonna try to get these things to be the exact same size, just so a side-by-side comparison is a bit easier to eyeball. Yo, why would you do that to me, Chrome? You were the right size. Okay, close enough. Now, we can see that mastery is indeed correct, and one of the cool things that came along for the ride this time, since we're overwriting the data, is that the order history is also correct. So we never really talked about this before, but in the stream, but we are actually tracking order history here. So, like the most recent, it's reverse chronological, so most recent is at the top. All of that came along for the ride, as did the new statuses. Two things that didn't come along for the ride, and one I am okay with, the other I am not, is that our learning now and resting statuses, and presumably needs practice is also an issue. So since I only called out mastery as a status, maybe that's why Codex just decided to focus entirely on that. But let's go ahead and mention that we have some inconsistencies with the other statuses as well. So I'll shrink this over so I can you can see them while I'm talking about it. Okay, that looks really good for the mastered status, but what I'm noticing now is that the learning now and resting status counts are not carrying over the way I would expect. So when I downloaded my data, I had 13 learning now kanji, and when I uploaded it, I have 0. When I downloaded my data, I had 2 resting kanji, and when I uploaded the data, I have 15 resting kanji. Presumably the same issue affects needs practice as well, but since we have 0 on both sides, I haven't determined that yet. We'll test it later. For now, can you have a look and form an understanding of why the learning now and resting statuses are not in sync when I re-upload my data into an incognito browser? Just for fun, let's try an entire, wait, why? Ah, right. Let's try an entirely new browser window as well, just to see if that, so just a moment ago, what we did in the other one, these look exactly the same as we, wait a second, interesting. Okay, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole just yet. Never mind. So much for my brilliant idea on that. There's something interesting there to think about, but not for now. Yeah, okay. And while we're waiting on that, I know that there were 2 notes that I had in the Scratch file. So one we're currently addressing, which is this here. So we're looking at the bot mentioned when it did its first pass at the work that it was merging indexed DB data, and we said we don't want to do that. In a better app, in a bigger app, and one that we're shipping to customers, that might be something we would consider for our use case here. It's completely unnecessary and will introduce a level of complexity we just don't need to deal with. Another one that it mentioned was this in-memory progress, which I want to ask it about as well. And then there's this, we just want to, if we have a moment, we'll add a nice confirmation dialog. Although the interesting thing is it says it's using alert or window.alert, but I don't know about you, but I don't remember seeing an alert. So we'll have to think about why that might be as well if we address this at all. By the way, I forgot to check last night just to see where our user base of 1 is on progress of kanji mastery so far. But as I mentioned maybe a couple of streams ago, or no, maybe last stream would have been 2 days ago, we were over halfway through first grade, which for no longer than we've been doing this, I would say is I'm pretty happy with that progress anyways. So let's see here. The mismatch is coming from current turn, not the progress data status. So there is some stuff in local storage that we may need to play around with anyways. The status counts on the progress page use get status key record and status, and okay, yep. Right, so you are telling me So the your progress chart looks right because build mastery series doesn't use current turn, but status buckets do. If you want, I can fix this without restoring local storage by deriving a turn from the imported progress. Okay, so before we do that, let's just ask if my insistence on never touching local storage is reasonable in this situation. Well, let's make a decision here. Think about whether or not it makes sense to completely avoid modifying local storage on import, or would it be recommendable to surgically just pick the stuff from the import file that we need to put into local storage? Give me the pros and cons of both approaches, and then we'll make a call. So sometimes you'll ask it to help you make a call on something. I'd like to give you two options, then it'll be like, a hybrid is the answer. So unless one of these answers was hybrid, which I don't think it was. So one is avoid local storage entirely, which is what we're currently doing. And the other is surgical local storage, restore only what we need. That maybe that's what they mean by hybrid. Let's find out. So hybrid, keep skipping the snapshot, but derive and set turn key from imported progress. That fixes the learning resting. Keep local storage untouched. Okay, great. That feels right to me. So my bias is obviously there. Okay. Restore a curated subset with date validation. Okay. I think I agree with your recommendation of the hybrid approach. Will that also address any issues with the needs practice status? Presumably, it has the same issue. I expect the answer to be yes here, but I'm trying to prime the pump a little bit in the large language model. I'm curious where this thing thinks it's using window.alert. I just don't remember seeing an alert anywhere, so maybe it is only doing it on failure? Unable to export data? Sure. Import complete? Have we seen that? I don't remember seeing that, but maybe I'm just naturally batting it straight out of the UI every time, so we'll find out in a second. But either way, like, so window.alert, that'll be obnoxious. What would that do on an iPad? That's the one where it just sort of like does that little thing in the middle of the screen? Yeah, so I was just going to show you this real quick while we're waiting. Again, if you've done any like basic JavaScript like tutorials or whatever, this is one of the things you probably end up doing at some point, just because it feels pretty cool in the beginning, which is like you can do this, and then it'll give you an alert. And I'm guessing like just never use this normally, but I think you can probably like pass this message as a string. As a matter of fact, DevTool says you can, so I can do like a oh no, and it'll say that right there. Okay. Let's see what this thing says. So yes, setting current turn from imported progress will fix the learning now versus resting. Wait, what? It won't affect needs practice. That one only depends on last seen at and last success at, but it will. Okay, fine. So interesting. We're gonna need to purposefully knock something into needs practice. which we will do here in just a second. Compute. Okay, cool. So it went ahead and did the work as well. I want to go back into the game real quick and get something in there needs practice. The algorithm is such that if you have already mastered something, it's a little tougher to just like not get straight back into need practice by missing it once. Let's see. Okay, great. So now we got a few in need practice. And we're going to export. And then over here, we will import, and we're going to look for the one with 3. Okay. Hey, so see, there was that dialogue. I have been just knocking it out of the way without thinking about it. Okay, cool. Hey, this is exactly what we wanted to see. I love it. Okay. Okay, so it might be that you notice there's just one other inconsistency here that we would want to deal with. And I'm going to ask how difficult of a change this will be, but these green dots show things like kanji that were... Let me think about this for a second. So no, the green dots show anything that has a new status today. If the status changed on today, which is in our local time zone, anytime between 2 a.m. and 2 a.m. Or 1:59 a.m. It'll show, okay, something on this day changed, and then like that way, when you, even if you filter some, eventually like this is a massive list, and you'll want to be able to see like what's what here was new. Like, so for example, if you see a green dot here, that's newly mastered. You see a green dot here, that is newly needs practice, but not for the ones that are brand new to us entirely. Probably the badging system could use a little work in terms of legibility, but you get the idea. Okay, so let's ask about that. It's great. What am I doing? We talk now, don't we? One more inconsistency I see is the green dots that indicate a newly changed status for today are not carrying over when we import. Presumably that has something to do with the date that we're keeping in local storage, since we're not working with that. But I'm just curious, is there a simple way to carry over those green dots without doing some sort of major surgery or risking something dangerous by overwriting things in local storage? Let's see if it can interpret my ramble. We are so very close to landing the plane on this feature that we started messing around with this week. I think for brevity's sake, we will not chase down the window.alert as much as I talked about that just a minute ago. It's not the biggest deal. And if you go back in one of the other streams from the week, you'll see we've already looked at what it takes to like get the bot to implement like SHAD-CN components, which is 100% what we would end up doing here anyways. And so just for brevity's sake alone, we just won't do that today. Refreshes the in-memory progress. I might have a question about that, but I feel like that's kind of ended up being addressed as part of fixing this indexed DB data merge stuff. Yes, the green dots are driven by daily status baseline stored in local storage. Yeah. On import, we skip local storage entirely, so load status baseline recomputes a fresh baseline. Yes, not surprised by that. Simple low risk fix. Restore only the status baseline keys from the backup if the saved day key matches today's session key. Right. So we're selectively picking up things if they match today's date. That avoids device ID and Session and session days keys. Trade-off. If the backup is from a different day or time zone, we won't restore the baseline, so the dots still won't show, but that's the safest behavior. But that's also exactly what we would want to happen, because they're no longer today. Actually, I want to double confirm this, because that's like an interesting sort of caveat to call out, when actually that's what we would want to have happen anyways. If you want, I can implement this with the small guard in page.tsx if paid load local stores. Yes. Before we implement, I just want you to address this comment that you made above. What you're describing here is exactly what the game would usually do anyways, right? So this really isn't a trade-off as far as I can see. Am I missing something? You're basically right. I love being basically right. Thank you. So in normal play, the baseline is stored per day and gets rebuilt. Yeah, so if the backup is from a different day, the game would already drop those changes to day. In that sense, it's not a real trade-off versus normal behavior. The only nuance is time zone clock skew. The backup made late last night in one locale and imported today is another could have a different. Oh man, that is so far beyond what we need to deal with for this game. Also, I think that'd be fine anyways. Like, yeah, if you're traveling while playing this game and trying to move data around, like that's not happening for our user base of one. We've no massive international travel planned for anytime soon, so I think we're good there. Yeah, let's keep strict day key match. I'm not super worried about users switching time zones when trading data. I guess if for whatever reason you were just trying to like cheat the game and like pick up somebody else's data from somewhere some other time zone, I don't know. Like in a real world application, these are things you would need to think about. But for this little thing, this little game that we're making, I think actually like what we're going to end up defaulting to is exactly what we would want anyways. Okay, so I think we can probably just, I'm going to do a hard refresh here. And then let's see if we can just import the last export since nothing's really changed anyways. Ooh, look at that. It did exactly what we hoped it would do. Okay, so I think we'll be fine with the alert. I'm going to ask this question, but I don't know if I'm super interested in the answer. I just want to see what it says. Okay, I think we've done everything we need to complete this user story of giving them the ability to export data and then import that data into another device or browser context. Is there any cleanup or any edge cases or anything else that you think we should think about before closing out this user story? This is like a really good question to ask, like when you're trying to really polish something. But for what we're doing here, I think I'm fairly satisfied with what we have anyways. And this is light years beyond. One other thing we didn't check, and I want to check this. So over here we have this. Let's see if the data matches. It does. Why was that? Why was I flinching? It does. Okay, so let's check a mastered one too that actually has a date. First seen on December 26th. Last mastered on the 9th of January. 5136. Look at that. Okay, so nice. As far as I can tell, we seem to be pretty solid. And even here, like start dates match. This is December 26th. This is December 26th. Very, very good. Even the thinking time here is probably more than I'd devote to a little toy game like this for closing up the user story, but I'm just curious if there's any like obvious red flags before we try this out. By the way, for all the incremental updates we've done so far in terms of getting these cards up and whatnot, like this is actually in the production app as well. So let me do this. I'm gonna go get the render service started because I don't think we've So I just have this on a free tier of render, but it's actually up on prod. If you did want to play around with it, you could. But you just have to wait for a minute or two to get it warmed up every time. Okay, so you're basically done for the user story. The remaining things are small edge case choices, not core functionality. If someone imports into a browser that already has today's baseline and local storage, the backup is from a different day. The green dots could be stale. We could clear the baseline keys before import to avoid that. I might say yes to this. Because at the end of the day, we do want like right now we're really comparing one current version to another current version, like, in other words, like what you would hope to see if this was actually cloud-based. And I'm logged in to my account in two different windows. I should see the same data, but since we're talking about imports and exports, like there's actually a time difference, and so like they could export something yesterday and then think to upload it later, and then yeah, we wouldn't want what it's calling stale green dots to show up. Not the biggest problem, but maybe it's worth it. I don't know. Actually, probably for the stream, maybe not, because I think I'm trying to wrap up here. But it's actually a really good point. We set the baseline keys before the import succeeds. If the file is invalid, we still write them. Moving that right after. Yes, it would be. Yeah, you should do that for sure. Probably just gonna say yes to the stuff, aren't I? If a backup has no progress records, we currently keep the existing current turn, not a big issue, but we could reset it to 0 to keep everything tidy. No, that's a no. Overwrite imports are destructive. A lightweight confirmation, this will replace local data, could prevent accidental uploads. Yes, again, in a production app for users, that would be great. We have one user who's never going to use this feature. If I'm completely honest, this is I'm building it for me to be able to move this stuff around and kind of potentially to have it in place if we ever end up deciding to move this into a cloud environment. Like I just want the data safety, like where I can download it before starting to move things around. So yes, in general, but in the abstract, but no in practice for our use case and our user. Okay. Yes to both of these. Look at me typing again. What am I doing? What are you going to do to implement these features? We'll call them fixes. I don't know. It doesn't matter. And while we're waiting, just to show you that I've been pushing these changes to production, like the ones that are more meaningful to my user, my daughter. Uh, so the export data thing, whatever, I don't think she's noticed that, which is what we want. But that's why we stuck it way down there. But these things actually, she's been quite excited about seeing, and so that's been a fun thing to show her. Again, I don't have any data in this one because like I'm not playing the game. But one fun thing that we could probably do at some point is just like download her data once and just show it imported, just so you can see like what her actual usage has looked like. Okay, so make 2 surgical changes. I love how it picked up surgical, which is the word I started using, and then it's like now using it too. Move baseline, restore, yeah, and then right. Okay. Well, why don't we verify? We could have verified that in production, couldn't we? But let's do it here first. So hard refresh, import data, give you this. Okay. What am I doing? That wasn't going to change anything anyways. Let's take an older version. Yeah, look at that. Okay, cool. And then we'll take a newer one. Yeah, so, I mean, really, this is preventing problems. So, like, if we didn't have those problems in the first place, it's tougher to verify. Again, we could put together some junky JSON and try to upload it and see what happens, but I don't think we're going to go to that level on a live stream. But certainly in a real app, something we would do. So just to do this at the end, all right. I said we could do this in production, but of course we can't because we haven't pushed it yet. So I will try that. I'll try that on my own time, but I do want to like get this up and see it actually happening. And then I don't know. Maybe I think this might be like the last time we look at this app on the live stream, unless I really want to get into doing something unrelated to file like data import and export. But again, like this app's not meant to be worked on forever. It's just a kind of a toy while we're learning some basic kanji. My eventual hope is that we can track this at least up to the second grade level. Second grade level is 240 kanji. Somewhere in here. Let's see, where do we put the string? Just kind of as a final thought, and to give you an idea of what else could happen. So we've got second grade string, and I think we store, wonderful. Okay, so we have these 2 reference lines. Oh man, but I don't have a good, okay, so I guess I'd have to put in the reference line here too, but I'm not. I'm just referring to these as hard-coded strings. I thought I was referencing like the data dump of all the kanji that we looked at in one of the first streams, like this kind of thing. This is just like open source JSON thing we grabbed from somewhere that has like all the kanji. I don't know how much, maybe all of elementary school. Yeah, at least through 6th grade, which I guess is elementary school and 1st grade of middle school here. So we could, anyways, you can see like we at some point would have gone through and counted all of these up, and then in the UI we put that one line that showed like at 2nd grade, but we just hard coded it here and started looking it up in the JSON, which is fine. But it means that I just off the top of my head cannot tell you how many kanji you would know by the end of 3rd grade, but I think it's like you add another 120 or 140 or something like that on top of it. You're fairly close to 400, if not above, by the end of 3rd grade. So that's probably as far as I'd want to push this application, and even by then we probably won't need it anymore. one of the cool things about just sidebar outside of applications, like one of the cool things about learning kanji in Japanese is like eventually like they kind of start reinforcing themselves to a certain extent. I mean, you still have to put in effort, but I tended to find it was sort of like starting to roll a snowball down a hill a little bit, which is like the more you learned, the more you could intuit, and you weren't just like in a workbook. It wasn't like rote memory for 3,000 kanji, which is wonderful to hear if you're getting started. The getting started part is really hard, but eventually I feel like it did get a lot easier. So this game, my hope would be that, pretty soon we could graduate out of it anyways. All right. Well, if you've followed along with all this, thanks for checking it out. Hopefully, I don't know, as you're looking at it, maybe you're picking up things like here's one way to like do some vibe coding on fun little HTML5 games in the browser using Next.js and using OpenAI codecs, just and kind of thinking about different like how to take like a basic idea and break it down into steps to actually fulfill a user story and all of that. But that's kind of what we've done over the last few streams, is just walk through that process and made a lot of progress. So thanks for checking it out. Let me know if there's anything that you'd want to see kind of just playing around live. But maybe next time we'll come back with something else to play to work on. All right, thanks for checking out Memorable Dev. See you next time.